When people hear the word tsunami, most immediately picture a giant wall of water, a monstrous curling wave like something out of a disaster movie, slamming into a city in one catastrophic strike. But the truth about tsunamis is far more complex, far more deceptive, and far more deadly than any Hollywood version has ever shown. And understanding these realities matters because believing the myths could literally cost lives. A tsunami is not a single wave at all, but a series of waves generated when the ocean is suddenly displaced by an immense force. Most commonly an undersea earthquake, but sometimes a volcanic eruption, a landslide plunging into the sea, or even, in extremely rare scenarios, the impact of a meteorite. And what sets tsunamis apart from ordinary waves is the scale of energy involved. Normal waves are created by wind blowing across the surface, affecting only the upper layers of water. But a tsunami involves the movement of the entire water column, from the seabed all the way to the surface. And that's why these waves can cross entire oceans at the speed of a jetliner, sometimes traveling at 500 miles per hour, faster than a commercial plane. And yet when they pass beneath ships in the deep ocean, they may be no more than a ripple a few feet high, barely noticed by sailors. The danger begins when that enormous energy approaches the shore, because as the water depth decreases, the wave compresses, slowing down to 30 or 40 miles per hour but rising dramatically in height, transforming into a wall of destruction that can crash inland with unimaginable power. One of the most dangerous myths is that tsunamis look like surfable waves, the kind of thing you might see in Hawaii or California. But the reality is uglier and far less cinematic. In truth, a tsunami often looks like a sudden, violent flood, a surge of water that just keeps rising and rushing forward, carrying cars, houses, boats, and trees as if they were toys. And sometimes the first wave is not even the biggest. The second or third wave may dwarf the first, striking when survivors think the danger has passed. This leads into another deadly misconception, the belief that you will always have a clear warning because the ocean will mysteriously pull back before the wave arrives. While it's true that in some cases the sea does retreat, exposing the seafloor in a surreal sight, it is not a reliable or universal signal. In 2004, during the catastrophic Indian Ocean tsunami, many people in Thailand and Sri Lanka saw the ocean recede hundreds of meters and, not understanding the danger, walked down to the exposed seabed to collect shells or take photographs, tragically placing themselves in the path of the returning wall of water. Yet in many tsunamis there is no withdrawal at all. The first warning is simply the water surging inland. That is why experts stress that if you live near the coast and feel strong, prolonged shaking from an earthquake, you must treat that as a natural tsunami warning and move to high ground immediately without waiting to see what the ocean does. Another widespread myth is the idea that a person can simply outrun a tsunami, perhaps by hopping in a car and speeding away. But the physics make that impossible in most cases. Out in the ocean, tsunamis travel faster than a jet. And even when slowed by shallow coastal waters, they can move inland at 30 to 40 miles per hour, faster than any person can sprint, and often faster than vehicles can navigate damaged, crowded, or narrow coastal roads. In 2011, when a massive tsunami struck Japan after the Tohoku earthquake, many people attempted to escape by car, but traffic jams left vehicles trapped, overtaken by the waves. The only reliable way to survive is not to try to outrun the water, but to already know your evacuation routes and to move inland or upward the moment the shaking stops. If inland routes are blocked, experts advise climbing to the upper floors of sturdy reinforced buildings, because vertical evacuation can save lives when horizontal escape is impossible. A related misunderstanding is the assumption that tsunamis only threaten people standing right on the shoreline, when in reality, their reach can extend miles inland. During the 2011 Japan disaster, waves surged more than 6 miles inland, devastating communities thought to be safe from the ocean's edge. And in other regions with flat coastal plains, tsunamis have traveled even farther, carrying seawater deep into farmland, towns, and infrastructure. This means that being a mile or two from the beach is not a guarantee of safety. The only protection is to know your local evacuation maps, which are designed to account for how far water can penetrate based on the geography of each region. Many also believe that only gigantic earthquakes, the kind measuring 8 or 9 on the Richter scale, can produce tsunamis. But what matters more than magnitude is the type of movement. If an earthquake shifts the seafloor vertically, even a smaller quake can displace enough water to generate a tsunami, especially if it triggers an underwater landslide. Local tsunamis generated this way can reach shorelines in minutes, leaving no time for distant warning systems to help. The 1998 Papua New Guinea tsunami, for example, was caused not directly by an earthquake but by a massive undersea landslide triggered by a magnitude 7 quake. The waves struck within minutes, killing over 2,000 people. Another misconception is geographical. Because the most widely publicized disasters in recent history happened in Asia, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and the 2011 Japanese tsunami, many people think of tsunamis as primarily an Asian problem, but they are a global hazard, threatening any coastline that borders an ocean or large sea. In fact, the United States has a long history of tsunamis. In Alaska in 1964, the Good Friday earthquake triggered a tsunami that killed over 100 people and caused damage as far away as California. Even more staggering, in 1958, a massive landslide into Lituya Bay, Alaska, created a wave that reached 1,220 feet in height, the tallest tsunami ever recorded, so powerful that it stripped trees and soil from mountainsides hundreds of feet above sea level. The Pacific Northwest, Hawaii, Chile, New Zealand, the Mediterranean, all are at risk. And history reminds us that the Atlantic Ocean too has potential tsunami sources, such as the Cumbre Vieja volcano in the Canary Islands, which some scientists speculate could trigger a transatlantic wave if a massive landslide occurred. Then there's the myth that modern technology can predict tsunamis with precision and always give people enough time to escape. While it is true that today's seismographs, satellites, and deep ocean buoys provide unprecedented detection and warning capabilities, they are not foolproof. They are effective at spotting tsunamis generated far offshore, where waves may take hours to reach land, giving coastal communities time to evacuate. But for local tsunamis, the waves can arrive in less than 10 minutes, sometimes within just 3 or 4, far too quickly for official alerts to reach everyone. That is why survivors and experts alike emphasize the importance of natural warnings. Strong, prolonged shaking that makes it hard to stand, or sudden changes in the ocean, should trigger immediate self-evacuation. Another misconception is that all tsunamis are alike, uniform in size and power, when in fact they vary widely. Some are barely noticeable, raising water levels only a few inches, while others reshape entire coastlines. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, caused by a magnitude 9.1 earthquake, released energy equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs, killing more than 230,000 people across 14 countries, one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. By contrast, smaller local tsunamis might only affect a single bay or village, devastating in that area but invisible beyond. And while earthquakes are the most common cause, they are not the only one. The 1883 eruption of Krakatoa in Indonesia generated waves over 100 feet high, killing more than 36,000 people. Underwater landslides, too, are capable of unleashing tsunamis. And in the geological past, massive asteroid impacts into the ocean have generated mega-tsunamis that reshaped coastlines and ecosystems on a planetary scale. Scientists warn that while the probability is extremely low in human lifetimes, such an impact in the future could create waves taller than skyscrapers and devastate multiple continents. These myths are not harmless misunderstandings. They have had fatal consequences. In 2004, thousands of people died because they did not recognize the retreating sea as a warning. In 2011, many Japanese residents evacuated after the first wave only to return too soon, not realizing that larger waves were still on the way. Yet knowledge has saved lives too. One famous story from 2004 tells of a British schoolgirl, Tilly Smith, who was vacationing in Thailand. She had recently learned in geography class that a receding ocean can signal an incoming tsunami. And when she saw the sea pulling back, she convinced her parents and then others on the beach to evacuate. Her quick thinking saved dozens of lives. In Chile, earthquake and tsunami drills are common, and in the 2010 mall earthquake, these drills meant entire coastal communities knew to flee uphill immediately, reducing the death toll significantly compared to regions where such preparedness was lacking. The lessons for survival are simple but critical. If you feel strong shaking near the coast, don't wait for sirens or phone alerts. Move to high ground right away. Do not go down to the beach to watch because the waves are faster than you think. Do not assume the first wave is the last because tsunamis come in sets that can last for hours. If evacuation routes are blocked, go upward in sturdy, reinforced buildings. And above all, trust your instincts. Hesitation can be deadly. Tsunamis do not follow movie scripts. They are not surf waves, they do not always give dramatic warnings, and they are not always predictable. They are fast, silent, and merciless, but with knowledge and awareness, survival is possible. By rejecting the myths and learning the truth, you not only protect yourself, but also give yourself the power to help others. Because when it comes to tsunamis, the difference between myth and reality is often the difference between life and death. And yet, even after all the lessons history has tried to teach us, new myths continue to creep into public imagination, fueled by movies, social media, and sometimes even misleading news headlines. And these misconceptions can lull people into a false sense of security at precisely the moments when clarity and quick action are most needed. Because the truth about tsunamis is that they are as unpredictable as they are inevitable. And the more we strip away the layers of myth, the more we empower ourselves to survive. One of the most stubborn myths is the belief that if you are indoors or a little elevated, you are automatically safe. But tsunamis do not respect walls, and they do not stop at the first floor of a building. Entire wooden houses have been lifted from their foundations and carried inland, and concrete structures have collapsed under the sheer force of water mixed with debris. Survivors often describe not just the flood of water, but the chaos of what it carries. Cars tumbling end over end, shipping containers smashing into buildings, electrical poles falling into the current, and fires breaking out as gas lines rupture, all of which turns the wave into a grinding, battering slurry that destroys almost everything in its path. The 2011 Japan tsunami created massive debris fields that floated out into the Pacific and were later spotted thousands of miles away, even washing up on the shores of North America years later. Reminders of just how much energy and reach a tsunami can have. Another myth is the idea that once the water comes in, it quickly drains away, leaving calm behind. But in reality, the waves often come in multiple surges, sometimes lasting for hours. In Japan, the first wave was devastating enough, but it was the waves that followed that caused the nuclear crisis at Fukushima, overwhelming seawalls that had held against the initial surge. Survivors who returned home too early to salvage belongings were caught in later waves and lost their lives because they thought the danger had passed. This pattern has repeated itself in other disasters as well, proving that patience and caution are as important as speed during evacuation. Another dangerous assumption is that sirens and official warnings will always come in time. But in many parts of the world, sirens are absent or malfunction, and even where they exist, local tsunamis can strike so quickly that technology cannot beat nature's clock. In 2018, when the Anak Krakatau volcano collapsed in Indonesia, generating a tsunami, no earthquake had preceded it, and warning systems failed to detect the sudden water displacement in time. Hundreds were killed as waves struck coastal towns during holiday celebrations, leaving people stunned and unprepared. This tragedy highlights the reality that not all tsunamis fit the classic earthquake-driven model, and that waiting for official alerts can be a fatal mistake. Another myth is that if you are out at sea, you are in grave danger, but paradoxically, the open ocean is often the safest place to be when a tsunami passes. Ships far from shore usually feel nothing more than a gentle rise and fall, because the energy is spread across the deep water. The danger comes when boats are in harbors or near coastlines, where the water becomes shallower and waves amplify. This has practical survival implications. Fishermen in tsunami-prone regions are sometimes instructed to head to deep water if they are already at sea when a warning comes. But of course, this only applies to those far enough offshore. For most coastal residents, evacuation inland remains the only option. Another widely believed myth is that tsunamis are primarily natural disasters beyond human control, when in reality, while we cannot prevent them, we can drastically reduce their impact through planning, education, and infrastructure. Japan, for example, has spent decades building seawalls, establishing evacuation drills, and teaching school children to recognize natural warning signs. And while the 2011 tsunami was catastrophic, those measures still saved tens of thousands of lives. In Chile, coastal communities practice drills so frequently that when earthquakes strike, people automatically head for higher ground without waiting to be told. In contrast, in regions where tsunamis are less frequent and awareness is low, the death toll is often much higher because people hesitate or do not know what to do. Education turns myths into knowledge, and knowledge into survival. Another myth is that tsunamis only affect coastlines directly facing the earthquake or source event. But waves travel in all directions, refracting around islands and bouncing within bays. In 1960, the Great Chilean Earthquake, the largest ever recorded at magnitude 9.5, generated tsunamis that did not just devastate Chile, but also traveled across the Pacific, killing people in Hawaii, Japan, and the Philippines, and causing measurable waves even in California. Similarly, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami spread destruction across 14 countries, from Indonesia to Somalia, showing how interconnected oceans make distance no guarantee of safety. Another misunderstanding is the idea that only daytime tsunamis are dangerous because you can see them coming. But in truth, tsunamis can strike at night, when visibility is low and evacuation routes are harder to navigate. In 1992, a tsunami struck Flores Island in Indonesia during the evening, catching residents in their sleep, and many perished simply because they did not realize what was happening until it was too late. This underscores the importance of instinct and preparedness. Knowing in advance what to do can overcome the disadvantage of darkness or confusion. Yet another myth is the belief that animals always sense tsunamis before humans do, and that following their behavior can guarantee safety. While it is true that during the 2004 tsunami some villagers reported elephants, dogs, and other animals fleeing to higher ground before the waves arrived, scientists caution against relying solely on this. Animal behavior is unpredictable, and in many cases there have been no such warnings. The true lesson is not to rely on folklore, but to trust geological signals like ground shaking and to follow official guidance when available. Another myth is that tsunamis are clean waves of water, but survivors will tell you the opposite. They are filthy, carrying mud, sewage, chemicals, fuel, and sharp debris. After the waters recede, the aftermath includes not just destruction but contamination, disease risks, and massive cleanup challenges. In Japan, recovery took years, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble and vast areas rendered uninhabitable. In Aceh, Indonesia, survivors of the 2004 tsunami faced outbreaks of illness due to polluted water and lack of sanitation. These realities remind us that the disaster does not end when the water retreats. In fact, that is when the long struggle of survival and rebuilding begins. Another common assumption is that tsunamis are rare and therefore not worth worrying about. But while large tsunamis are infrequent compared to everyday hazards, their impact is so enormous that preparation is essential. In the Pacific Ocean alone, tsunamis occur on average twice per year, though most are small, and destructive tsunamis happen roughly once every decade. Over the span of human history, their cumulative toll rivals or exceeds many other natural disasters, and with increasing coastal populations, the potential for future devastation grows larger. The myth of rarity becomes dangerous because it leads to complacency, and complacency kills. Another subtle but dangerous myth is that high-tech defenses like seawalls, breakwaters, and floodgates make people invincible. Japan had some of the most advanced tsunami defenses in the world in 2011, but the waves overtopped them, in some places by more than double their height. Defenses can reduce risk, but they cannot eliminate it. The safest defense is still human awareness and rapid response. Another myth, often spread by dramatic media images, is that tsunamis always arrive as a single towering wall of water crashing down like a surfer's dream wave. In reality, they can take many forms. A rapidly rising tide that never stops, a series of surging bores rushing upriver, or a wall of churning debris pushing inland. Survivors describe hearing a roar like a freight train before seeing a brown, debris-filled surge consuming everything in its path. Expecting a cinematic wave can cause people to underestimate the real thing when it looks different, delaying their escape. Yet another misconception is that tsunamis are unstoppable forces of nature before which humans are utterly helpless. While it is true we cannot prevent them, we are far from powerless. Communities with strong education, early warning systems, and rehearsed evacuation plans have proven again and again that survival is possible. The difference between villages that evacuate immediately and those that hesitate can be measured in thousands of lives. The most powerful tool against tsunamis is not a seawall or a satellite. It is knowledge shared widely and acted upon quickly. And so, when we peel away all these myths, the myths of giant surf waves, of guaranteed warnings, of outrunning the water, of safety away from the beach, of rarity, of technology alone saving us, what remains is the sober, empowering reality. Tsunamis are natural phenomena of immense power, But they follow physical laws we can understand. They leave geological and historical records we can study, and they present patterns we can prepare for. From the fishermen of Samoa to the schoolchildren of Chile, from scientists in Alaska to villagers in Indonesia, humanity has learned, often painfully, that survival depends not on luck but on listening to the truth of science and the lessons of history. And this is why busting myths is more than an academic exercise. It is a matter of life and death. If you are near the coast and you feel the ground shake so strongly you cannot stand, do not wait. Do not check your phone. Do not watch the ocean. Move inland or upward immediately. If you see the ocean recede, treat it as the ocean drawing breath before a strike and run. Do not assume safety until authorities give the all clear, because the waves can keep coming for hours. Do not believe that size, geography, or technology alone will save you. Believe instead in your ability to act quickly, to prepare, and to share knowledge with others, because in the end, awareness spreads faster than water, and it is that awareness that saves. Tsunamis will continue to come as they have for millions of years, reshaping coastlines and testing human resilience. But if we confront myth with reality and ignorance with knowledge, we give ourselves the best possible chance to endure. And so, the final reality is this. Tsunamis are not Hollywood's towering surfing waves. They are not guaranteed to give warnings. They are not limited to Asia. They are not always predictable. But they are survivable if you know what to do. And one day, this knowledge, the knowledge you now carry, could mean the difference between tragedy and survival, between becoming another statistic and living to tell the story, and perhaps saving others as well.